This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Wednesday, October 28th. This is Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees. So our broadcast will look a little different today and in the near future as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what's going on, and we appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. Tanzanian voters are casting their ballots Wednesday to decide who will be the country's next president. Tundu Lissu of the opposition is challenging John Magufuli's run for a second term as president. Charles Kombe looks at what citizens and analysts consider critical issues in this election and how the main candidates are promising to address them.
Kumbusho Kagine is a social media influencer and a human rights activist in Tanzania. He was arrested in 2017 while a student at the University of Dar es Salaam for posting pictures of a cracked wall of the new hostel that was built and named after Tanzanian President John Magufuli. The arrest comes after he stated that the wall was falling apart barely 4 weeks after it was first occupied. In this election, his dream falls to a leader who will promote and ensure human rights and the rule of law.
My first priority in this 2020 general election is the freedom of expression. I believe those leaders who defend the Constitution of the Republic of Tanzania, which emphasizes and ensures the freedom of expression, who will be elected, they will make sure that they are going to remove all the oppressive laws that limit people's freedom, especially freedom of expression and of the press.
In this election, at least a dozen candidates are vying for the presidency. But the primary challenger is Tundu Lissu of the main opposition party for democracy and development, Chadema. Lissu, who is referred to by his supporters as a walking miracle, returned to the country in July after 3 years in Belgium, where he was recovering from a 2017 assassination attempt in Tanzania. Each candidate is finalizing their election campaigns, which started on August 26, by persuading voters with their promises and priorities, range in every aspect, including development and human rights. To Lissu and his party, democracy comes first.
We are talking about agendas of freedom, rights, and development of the people. That is the manifesto for our party, Chadema.
For the ruling party of the revolution, Chama cha Mapinduzi, CCM, the longest-serving ruling party in Africa, having held power since independence in 1961, its candidate Magufuli speaks of transforming the country by building the economy and improving infrastructures.
Development is gradual, and this is because in a short period of time, our country has managed to attain a middle-income status. We were a poor and disrespected country, but now we are a middle-income country. This is not a small thing. When we assumed office, there were 2,018 villages with electricity supply, but now we have supplied to 9,700 villages.
Political analysts say despite the development that have sprung up under this leadership, the smooth development goes parallel with democracy, and this is a vital thing that the coming leader must ensure.
There can never be development when there are no freedoms. Development partly means that the people are free to express, they can make use of the press, they can be free to express on social media.
Meanwhile, Kumbusho will go to the polls believing that his vote will decide the kind of a leader who will lead the country in the right direction. Charles Kombe for VOA News in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania.
A case against 47 men charged with public displays of affection against the same sex has been struck down in a Nigerian court after the prosecution failed to attend. David Doyle reports.
Outside the Federal High Court in Nigeria's Lagos, it's a day of celebration. After a judge threw out a case 47 men charged with public displays of affection with members of the same sex.
I'm free. I'm free to travel the country. I'm free to fly. Yeah. It means a lot of good things. Yeah, I'm very free.
The men were being charged under a 2014 law that banned gay marriage and same-sex amorous relationships, and that prompted international outcry when it came into force. But the case was struck out by Justice Rilwan Aikawa because of a lack of diligent prosecution. Prosecutors have previously failed to present witnesses in a case that has been adjourned several times. On Tuesday, they didn't even show up. The 47 men were arrested in a raid on a Lagos hotel in 2018. Police accused them of taking part in a gay initiation ceremony. The men said it was a birthday party. The specific charge the men faced carried a jail sentence of up to 10 years. And, because the case has been struck out rather than dismissed entirely, under Nigerian law they could be rearrested and arraigned again on the same charges. Outside the court, taxi driver Onyeka Ogwagamba, who said he had merely driven people to the party, is disappointed.
I'm not happy because I'm looking towards the matter that the matter will end in a way that people will see me and believe what I've been saying from the beginning of this matter.
Some of the men have previously complained that the damage has already been done, saying they have been stigmatized in the socially conservative country since the raid and a televised news conference the next day in which they were identified.
That was David Doyle of Reuters reporting. A Lagos state government judicial panel has launched an inquiry into alleged police shootings of protesters who are demanding an end to police brutality. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari says he supports the investigation, while a new curfew is also in effect in the city from 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. I spoke to Yetunde Omede, a professor at Farmingdale State College in New York State, and asked her what she makes of the new developments.
The politicians at the head of state of the country is trying to grapple with the aftermath of what is happening and what is still presently going on. We have not stopped any of the breaking into private property, so that's still continuing. So with all of the new developments, I think everybody's just trying to grapple of how do we make the best of the situations? And we've seen some governors in Nigeria rise to the occasion, and we've seen some still grappling on how to lead their constituencies.
President Buhari is also saying he will support a judicial inquiry in Lagos to bring justice to the peaceful protesters who lost their lives in the chaos. Drawing from past experiences, how fast can Nigerians expect justice?
I think hopefully we'll go from lip service to actually action. So that is something that is expected of him to say in order to calm people's nerves, in order to restore peace back into the communities. Now, how long will it take for judicial inquiry to occur? That is left to be said. That's, we don't know. We don't know how long that's going to take. We don't know when there's a calendar date for that or the agenda for that. But what we do know is that he has publicly made a statement, and that is something that we can hold him accountable for.
Now, there's an emerging Nigerian women movement, and it looks unrelenting in their fight for justice and a better Nigeria. Where do you see this going?
I see it going pretty far because, as you understand, when they was having the End SARS movement, there were women who lost mothers who lost their children to police brutality at the hands of police officers, at the hands of SARS police officers. And they have come forward telling their stories of how they have lost their children, their sons, their daughters to injustice, to police brutality. So you cannot forget their pain. You cannot forget their experience. I think that we're going to see more women become even more vocal. I think we're going to see a cross generation of mothers and daughters actually walking hand in hand to hold elected officials accountable for their actions, as well as those who are in position to protect and actually serve our communities, and that would be police officers.
Now, Dr. Yetunde, there's one woman who is standing out, Aisha Yesufu, who is now being compared to America's Statue of Liberty. Your thoughts about this woman?
I'm always happy to see women come out in the forefront to speak truth to power, especially in patriarchal systems that oftentimes tries to limit the voice of a woman. It is okay to speak your mind, especially when you know that there is injustice, especially when you know that you can use your voice for change. So I applaud her, and I applaud all the young women and women who have spoken out and who have put their lives at risk, who have put their families' lives at risk to ensure that this generation gets what it deserves.
Now, Pope Francis has also weighed in on these protests. How likely is his message to change what we have witnessed in Nigeria?
I think it's important to get messages from different people, from those who wield extreme influence and impact all around the world. So whenever we have institutions, whenever we have other bodies of people who are speaking from different parts of the world who wield influence, it brings further exposure to the issues going on ground.
And as you follow events back in your country of birth, what do you foresee in the coming days?
You know, a lot of things are up in the air in terms of what is the direction that the government is going to take. Will the peaceful protests continue? Will the young people continue to speak out if a lot of the things that they have wanted to be addressed are not actually implemented? Does the scaling back of peaceful protests, does that release the pressure of accountability on the government? So there's a lot of different questions. And I think in the days, things will organically and naturally unfold itself. Of course, a government, their main priority is to try to put law and order into place after there has been some form of a breakdown.
What do you think so far has been the impact of these protests on Nigeria's economy?
Governor of Lagos has come out to say that it's going to cost approximately 1 trillion naira in order to fix all of the businesses and restore Lagos to where it was before. And you have to understand, a lot of the people who really stood next to the peaceful protesters, who empathize and sympathize with the plight of fellow Nigerians like themselves, are private business owners who were doing the best that they can to also support their families. So there's a myriad of issues that state in particular is dealing with, and others throughout Nigeria. And the federal government has to take that into account, that not only have people lost their lives, they have lost their livelihoods, they have lost their sense of peace and security. And unfortunately, this is not something that is going to take days to get back. This is something that is going to be a process for people to rebuild.
Yetunde Omede is a professor at Farmingdale State College in New York. A delegation from the Economic Community of West African States, African Union, and the United Nations is calling on both Guinean President Alpha Conde and opposition leader Cellou Dalein to find a solution to the post-election crisis in the country. The opposition says security forces killed 27 of its supporters during protests following the disputed October 18th presidential election. But the government disputes that number, saying 21 people died. During a news conference in Conakry Tuesday, the delegation called on the Guinea government to investigate the killings. Mamadou Diane-Balde, the editor of the Independent and Democrat newspaper in Guinea, says the delegation also appealed to the government to lift the security blockade around opposition leader Diallo's residence. We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, we'll find out why Nigeria is seeking to regulate blockchain and cryptocurrencies. Stay with us.
Being part of Our Voices is about more than just sitting here and talking about women's issues. It's about listening to them
and bringing their opinions to the table and making sure their voices are heard.
Because our lived experiences, our stories, and our voices will help shape the next generation.
Welcome back to Africa 54. With two presidential candidates over the age of 70, younger voters may have a big say in who wins the U.S. election. Have a look.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to VOA Africa. Nearly 80% of young voters in the United States tell pollsters they definitely plan to vote in November 3rd presidential election. Who are these young Americans eager to exercise their civic duty?
Voters between the ages of 18 and 29 span two generations, older Gen Z voters and younger millennial voters. They are more racially diverse than U.S. voters who are older than 30. White voters make up 61% of the youth electorate, compared with 73% of the electorate over 30. Young voters generally have the worst turnout on Election Day, with just over 46% participating. They're more likely to call themselves Democrats than Republicans, with roughly a third not wanting to identify with either party. In 2016, young voters favored Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump, but there were significant differences according to race, with more young white voters choosing Trump and more young black voters choosing Clinton. Latino youth also favored Clinton. Young voters say the most common way they get election information is from their families, with more than two-thirds of young people saying their party preferences match their parents'. Following family, the next most popular sources of political information for young voters are network television and Facebook.
Tomorrow, we'll try to help explain how the U.S. Electoral College works. Trailing in the polls, President Donald Trump has seized upon recently disclosed emails allegedly from the son of Democratic candidate Joe Biden as an October surprise that could alter the race. VOA's Brian Padden reports on how this development compares to past October surprises.
This October, President Donald Trump's campaign disclosed unverified emails purportedly from Hunter Biden, the son of Democratic candidate and former Vice President Joe Biden. The emails suggest Hunter may have been paid by Ukrainian energy company Burisma to seek preferential treatment from his father during his time in the Obama White House. At last week's debate, Trump confronted Biden on the controversy.
The horrible emails of the kind of money that you were raking in, you and your family. And, Joe, you were vice president when some of this was happening.
Biden has denied allegations of corruption and called them a distraction.
There's a reason why he's bringing up all this malarkey. There's a reason for it. He doesn't want to talk about the substantive issues.
The Trump campaign's focus on Hunter Biden comes close to Election Day.
At this point in the campaign, you don't have much time left, so any arrow you have in your quiver, however small, you're still going to try to shoot.
The term October surprise, coined in 1980, refers to secret efforts by then-President Jimmy Carter to negotiate the release of American hostages in Iran prior to the election. Ultimately, the talks fell through and Ronald Reagan went on to win. There were two October surprises in 2016 when Trump faced Democrat Hillary Clinton. The release of a recording of Trump making lewd comments about women grabbed headlines until later that month when the FBI reopened an investigation into Clinton over her use of personal email for classified information. This year, however, allegations of Russian involvement in collecting the alleged Hunter Biden emails have clouded their credibility, along with Trump's past impeachment for pressuring Ukraine to dig up dirt on his Democratic rival, and reports that Trump paid little tax in the United States while earning millions in China.
They have not been able to elevate the questions around Joe Biden's candidacy and potential presidency as being anywhere near dominant to the kind of controversies and chaos that really are a part of this presidency.
This year's October surprise could also turn out to be Trump contracting the coronavirus earlier this month, refocusing attention on a deadly pandemic the president has long insisted is waning. Brian Padden, VOA News, Washington.
Residents of South Africa say that 4 years of U.S.-Africa relations under President Donald Trump have not helped their lives. VOA's Anita Powell spoke to analysts and citizens in Johannesburg, the economic hub of the continent, about what matters to them as America votes.
Africa's most mature democracy is watching the American election with great interest and trepidation. VOA has, during the past 4 years, spoken to hundreds of South Africans of all backgrounds about U.S. politics and found few who support President Donald Trump. Most pin their disapproval on reports that he made disparaging comments about African nations. Entrepreneur Katyala Maine says he's pulling for former Vice President Joe Biden. Here's what he thinks of the current president.
He wants to make America great again, but America needs the rest of the world in order for it to be great. The fact that he believes that disinvestment or lesser aid to African countries is warranted, well, that's his opinion.
Others say they pine for the past and try to ignore the deluge of news.
Personally, I'm still all for Barack Obama. Donald Trump, personally, no, he's not my favorite.
Diplomat turned journalist Brooks Spector, who has lived in South Africa since the 1970s, says South Africans' fascination with the U.S. is understandable.
It's a kind of mirror image of their own society, with a lot of the same prickly bits and wounds, but phrased or framed in a different kind of way.
The most important policy aspect, he says, is the African Growth and Opportunities Act, which expires in 2025. The act allowed South Africa to export $8.55 billion worth of goods, duty-free, to the U.S. in 2018. But some South Africans say they are indifferent to the world's largest economy.
Donald Trump and his policy on Africa, I actually don't know what his policy on Africa is, but I actually don't care for what's happening in America at all, to be honest.
Africa has not come up often on the campaign trail, but Trump's periodic tweets about the continent, from his concerns about killings of white farmers in South Africa to more recent comments about the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, have sparked criticisms from African leaders. Biden has also seldom brought up the continent, but counts former Obama-era policy experts on his campaign team, a sign he may seek to restore the previous administration's Africa policy. This story may be unfolding on the other side of the world, South Africans say, but the result could affect their lives too. And they are watching. Anita Powell, VOA News, Johannesburg.
In our technology report, governments are trying to regulate blockchain and cryptocurrency and protect their interests and those of their citizens around the world. Nigerian regulators are working on a proposal that lays out plans to regulate cryptocurrencies through its Securities and Exchange Commission. For more perspective, Africa 54 technology reporter Paul Ndiho spoke to Bolaji Onibudo, founder and president of Zenibit, a fintech company in Lagos, Nigeria.
Bolaji Onibudo, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you for having me, Paul.
You're part of a commission that has been set up to come up with a regulatory framework to address future challenges of blockchain and cryptocurrencies in Nigeria. Maybe can you bring us up to speed? Tell us what that regulation is all about.
Bitcoin and cryptocurrency has become very popular among the millennials in Nigeria. The youths are trading with it. And it's an avenue that is sort of enabling them to be self-employed. But there were other Ponzi schemes that became really popular. So that led a lot of investors to lose their money, people who were not so savvy of the markets. And so the government came out and tried to stamp down on that and made a lot of declaration. So the central bank had to take a position formally to restrict banks and other licensed businesses under the financial services sector that nobody should encourage or trade Bitcoin. And more so, investors who do invest in it would do so at their own peril. Nigerian Blockchain User Group approached the Nigerian Securities and Exchange Commission to interact with them and to say, hey, listen, this is a real technology. There are real opportunities with this technology. Perhaps, Nigeria needed to start to take a look at what's happening globally and create a much more regulated environment that would foster innovation, that would encourage investment, and that would protect investors. So we needed to ensure that there was proper regulations.
For the sake of the audience, maybe, is it possible for you to explain the difference between blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies?
They are completely related, and in some instances, they are tied together. So the instance which they are tied together is, for instance, the blockchain of Bitcoin. So you cannot have a cryptocurrency without an underlying blockchain. Essentially, in business, blockchain is also referred to as a distributed ledger. So for Bitcoin, there is a blockchain governing Bitcoin to ensure that all the records and transactions related to transactions of Bitcoin are kept and balanced. And then the key part of the word distributed is also to say that that ledger is not just one copy. There are thousands of copies all around the internet, all around the globe, which are all in sync. So each cryptocurrency has an underlying blockchain, which is the distributed ledger that maintains the accounting and the balancing of the books for that token.
About a lot of central banks all over the world are having issues trying to regulate this technology. What could be the cause? You said it's a very secure platform, but then we have people worried about whether or not they should legalize this as a currency.
The truth of the matter is, when two or more people come together and decide on their unit of account, which is going to be used as a basis for trade or exchange of value between them, then really nobody else can have a say besides maybe a judge if there's a dispute or if there has been a foul play or fraud. But of course, if you are now doing a public offer, similar to an initial public offer, IPO, you do an initial coin offering, and then you are now reaching out to the greater public. Then you need the permission of the regulator of the capital market, which is the Securities and Exchange Commission. And this is why it was important that they give a formal position with regards to cryptocurrencies and tokens.
Bolaji, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Paul.
That was Africa 54 technology reporter Pondiho speaking to Bolaji Onibudo, founder and president of Zenbit, a fintech company based in Lagos, Nigeria. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thank you for watching.